Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Smart Divorce Podcast. And I'm joined today by my good friend Claire Macklin, whose book is just over her shoulder. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you're not, I'm going to ask her to tell you about her book in a bit. Claire, thank you for joining me as always. How are you?
Yes, Tamsin, it's really great to see you again. We haven't seen each other for a while, so it's nice to catch up.
It is, and the thing I love about recording these podcasts is it does still feel like a catch up.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good. Um, so Claire, you're a divorce coach, and we're going to talk a lot about your work as a divorce coach. Could you start off by just letting our listeners know what a divorce coach is, what they do, why, and when they might need one?
Okay. A divorce coach is somebody who helps you to find clarity, helps you to perhaps get your emotions under control. Because when you're going through a divorce, the emotions can be really heightened, and that can sort of fog your view of what's happening. It can lead you to make very emotional based decisions rather than ones based on, information and really clear choices and so on. So I help my clients to get calm, to see clarity, to see the different options that are in front of them, to be able to evaluate those options, perhaps, to be able to look at a long-term view, and to be able to navigate their way through with confidence. And then I also help them to plan what life looks like post-divorce, because that's really important. You can find lots of my clients talk about standing on the edge of a cliff and they're not quite sure what's underneath them. The future can feel really uncertain, and scary. And so I do a lot of work with clients around, what their values are and what they would like life to look like afterwards. And that's, we work in conjunction with people like you to work out, the financial basis for that and what the purpose for their money is and all of those kinds of things. So essentially, it's a real journey, and I walk beside my clients right from the beginning, sometimes right into post-divorce. I've got quite a lot of clients that come back every 6 months, perhaps once a year. We have a top-up session, or when they meet somebody else and they want to talk about new relationships. So it can cover all kinds of things, but very solution focused, very concentrate on you. So put yourself at the center of your life, is the focus really.
I think that
As for when you, sorry, go on.
sorry, go on. No, go on.
I was going to say, you asked me when you might need one. So there are lots of points actually at which coaching can be really, really helpful. If you feel like everything's out of control, if you feel like your emotions are really up and down like a roller coaster, if you feel that you're stuck, that you can't see the options and choices ahead of you, if you're stuck with communication, perhaps with your ex-partner, um, if you are feeling panicky all the time or anxious all the time, um, if you are finding that you keep changing your mind perhaps around what you want, what your priorities are, and you're finding that really difficult to perhaps communicate with your solicitor. Those are some of the things that I can help you with, and that might be kind of flags to think, well, maybe I need a little bit of extra help and support with working through those things.
Yeah, I like that. And so, do people often come to you right at the very beginning of their divorce journey? Because to me, you would be the perfect person to speak to. Like, even I'm not quite sure if I should go or not. Like,
Yes.
I would. That was me. I'm on the phone to you.
Yes, absolutely. And I have increasing over the years I've been doing this, increasing numbers of people who, and I think this is possibly because divorce coaching is becoming so much more well known. You have
Yeah,
increasing numbers of people who come to me before they go to a lawyer or a solicitor because they're not sure whether they want to stay in their relationship or whether they want to leave. And absolutely, that's something that we can explore. And I've had lots of clients in that position. Sometimes they stay, and then we talk about how they could perhaps communicate more effectively within the relationship, how they could use conflict as an opportunity for growth, perhaps. Or if they choose to leave, then we talk about how they can tell their partner that that's what they want and what their intentions perhaps are for going through the process. Um, it means that you can start that process off being really clear about where you want to get to and who you want to be in that process. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I really love about you, and this is one of the things that I mentioned your book when we first started, and it's one of the things that I love about the book is it's so practical. It's like, and you're very empathetic, but it's not, oh, never mind, it'll all be okay. It's like, do this, do this, do this, and that's sometimes what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And I think that's what you just
Absolutely.
highlighted. I don't see it as my job to, if my clients say sitting, using an analogy, they're sitting down a really dark well, it's cold, it's wet, it's horrible down there. It isn't my job to climb in and sit in there with you. It's my job to climb in and bring a ladder, show you how to climb up the rungs so that you can, emerge from that well and back out into the sunshine. So yes, my book's full of strategies. You'd need a journal to go alongside my book, so that you can write, you can think about the things that I suggest you consider. There are loads of different exercises in it, from very practical things like breathing exercises, imagery exercises, but also exercises to help you really think about, for example, the things you're afraid of and what you could do to try and mitigate those fears. So yeah, it's practical, but also sort of emotional at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. It's fantastic. And if anyone listening is going through divorce and wants to get hold of Claire's book, I'm sure we'll be able to put the link in the show notes so that you can get that ordered, because it certainly is a good thing to read, get some seriously good practical tips. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was what your week looks like. So I know that we've kind of said you deal with people at all sorts of different points in their journey, and you help them with all sorts of different aspects of their divorce. So is there a normal working week for you?
Really interesting question. I mean, there are things that are the same every week, but in general, I would say that my diary is absolutely varied. There are no 2 weeks that are ever the same because there are no two clients that are ever the same. Um, so I was looking at my diary this morning in sort of preparation for talking to you, and thinking, oh my goodness, I wrote down a list of all the things that I'm doing this week, and there's a huge amount of things. This week, for example, I've got 18 hours of face-to-face work with clients at all different stages. So just looking at my diary now, this week I'm looking at working with clients who are right in the early stages. Um, I've got a client who is really concerned about children, so we'll do a lot of talking about parenting and co-parenting, parallel parenting, all that kind of thing. Another one who is, I think, 3 or 4 years post-divorce, and we're looking at where she wants her life to go from here. And I've got another client this week who is dealing with a very high conflict, narcissistic ex-husband, and that's that's been ongoing for a couple of years. And then I'm talking with a dad later this week who is concerned about the amount of contact that he's able to have with his children, and so it's massively, massively varied. Oh, and another client tomorrow from the States who wants to talk about new relationships, boundaries, green flags, red flags, that kind of thing. She's sort of a couple of years post our work together. So it's massively varied in terms of clients. But behind that, I'm also, I've got another phone where I've got WhatsApps coming in from clients on and off, emails coming in that I respond to. So not all of my coaching is one-to-one across Zoom or in my coaching space. I do quite a lot responding to emails, WhatsApps, and I'm really aware things happen between sessions.
Yeah.
Your divorces don't fall neatly into the time when we have a session on a Monday morning and then our next session. So that's part of the service that I provide, is kind of that all round, something happens, you can message me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with some suggestions how you might look at it differently or what you could possibly do. So that's kind of the client facing stuff. And then I do webinars as well. So sometimes I've got, a couple of hours blocked out to plan a webinar and then presenting a webinar. Really enjoy doing that because that enables me to reach people who perhaps, can't afford to invest in one-to-one coaching because I know it's expensive. It's not within everybody's budget. So I like to do some things that I can, say to people, look, if you can't afford to have one-to-one coaching, then there's also this. Take a look at all these webinars. I've got a big library of webinars that I can point people towards. And then sometimes I get messages from clients I'm no longer working with. So I had one this morning from a lady who I worked with for about a year and a half. Really difficult divorce, very difficult ex-husband again. But she sent me a picture of herself outside her new front door with her new heart-shaped key ring, just moving into her new house. So I was like, yes. So it's really lovely. I build up a real relationship with my clients when I work them one-to-one, and it's so lovely to hear from them a year, 2 years, even 3 years down the line with sort of how life has turned out for them, and that is so rewarding.
Yeah, that's the bit, isn't it, that you kind of go, oh yeah, they've got their butterfly wings and they're off in this new world, and it's so great to see clients really fly.
It really warms your heart, doesn't it? And it puts a smile on your face, and you think, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why we do this work, is to get people out the other side in a positive space. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Your work is as crazily varied as mine is. What does it look like for somebody coming to work with you? How does the process begin? What do they need to do? What do they need to bring to you?
So I always start with talking to people first, like I was saying, understand this is a real investment in yourself. So I always talk to people for, a good half hour, sometimes a bit longer, before they kind of sign up for sessions. We talk about what their main challenges are, what their main concerns are. And I give them strategies in that call as well. So you'll take some value away from that, even if you don't move on forward. And then we have sessions. Generally, I see people once every 2-3 weeks, sometimes even longer, sometimes shorter. It's really flexible. It's very bespoke, tailored. So, the service that I provide is really based around what you need and what you need right now. So there's no kind of program as such. I couldn't say in session 1 we're going to do this, and in session 2 we'll look at that, and session 3 we'll look at this, because it's very responsive to where you are right now, what you're feeling right now, what's happening in your world right now. I suppose one of the key things that comes up a lot is helping my clients move from feeling like it's happening to them to feeling like they have choices and control, and that they're being proactive and they're able to take decisions. So I suppose that's, if there's anything that characterizes everything that runs through all my coaching work, it's about moving from feeling like you're a victim to feeling like you're not just a survivor but a thriver. And then every client's journey is so very different. Some clients will work with me for a year and a half, other clients 4 months, some clients will just have a one-off session, on something very, very focused. So it's so varied.
It's hard to kind of go, this is this is what I do. I think there are divorce, I hope I'm right in saying I'll probably get an onslaught of emails after I've said this, but I think there are divorce coaches who do have quite a sort of specific program that they work through, and they cover different aspects of divorce. And I think it is about finding the person that you kind of relate to, and that you feel that because it's a very trusting relationship, isn't it, this one, as the coach and the coachee.
Yeah, absolutely. That rapport between coach and coachee is so, so important. It's about trust. So, people will tell me things in our sessions that they may not have said out loud before, that they may not have even really allowed themselves to even think before. And so there needs to be that sense that I'm holding that safely for them. It's confidential, unless, of course, they tell me something that I have to by law report. You know, it's confidential. It's a safe place for them to explore things with somebody who's impartial, who doesn't know their ex-partner, who doesn't know their children, who doesn't know their friends. So, and that aspect of it is hugely important to me. That trust part of it, really important.
Absolutely. How do you, so obviously your clients see what they see in front of them. How do you prepare to see a client, whether I don't know if this is different for someone you've never met before or for somebody you've been working with for a while. So what's your preparation, what's your process?
That's a great question. So, for the sort of 20 minutes before a session, I'll spend, if it's a client that I've been seeing for a while, I'll go back through my notes and I'll remind myself what we looked at last time, exactly where they are on their journey. In the old days when I first started, I could remember each client really clearly from one session to the other. But now that I've got kind of, you know, maybe 30 clients at a time, I just look to remind myself what their children are called, you know, that kind of thing. But then I do this kind of little ritual and I stand in front of my mirror and I actually talk to myself. And I practice what I preach. I talk to myself about how I have all the resources that I need and remind myself to put on my listening ears. And you know, I remind myself that you know, I'm here to get into my client's map of the world. This isn't a place where I tell you what to do. This is a place where I come alongside you and we explore this together. So I stand in front of the mirror and I remind myself of all of that, and then I do some breathing, and then I'll stand up and I'll stretch my arms and I grin at myself and put my shoulders back, and then I feel ready. So it's about stepping into that role, that place.
Yeah, putting yourself in the place where you're completely present for your client. I like that.
Yeah, and I like to call it I'm clean. You know, I'm clean of my own stuff before I go into that session. Yeah,
I love that. I had a friend who used to have a ritual which involved putting lipstick on, but it was if I do this, I then become the person who's there and present and ready to receive what that other person has to give me. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And so, not wanting to be the person who's in the well with the client, to use your analogy, not kind of sitting there with them. How do you unpack after you finish working with a client in that particular session? Because it's really important for us in both of our work that we don't carry everything with us into our lives. So how do you go about doing that?
No, that's a really important thing. So again, at the end of the session, I have another little ritual where I'll stand up. I'll stand up. I'm going to do it now. I'll stand up and I shake off. You know, the session.
You have to watch this on YouTube.
That's okay. You know, so I shake off the session, and then I'll go out of the room when I close the door on the session, and then I usually make myself a cup of tea, or I, you know, sit down for 5 minutes and just breathe it out. But I'm also quite, something that you learn as a coach is to kind of disassociate yourself, so I can step away from the content of the session. And I also have regular supervision for myself so that I have somebody, if there's something worrying me, I can go and talk about it. So I have supervision sort of every 6 to 8 weeks for myself anyway with a supervisor. And I also have a fellow coach that I go to sometimes for specific supervision around clients who are in domestic abuse situations as well. So I go to somebody that I see as a peer expert on that to talk about that as well. So, and I also do loads and loads and loads of reading, you know, around the subject that I coach around all the time. So I keep myself very educated around it all.
That's my next question. Because I was going to ask how in financial services we have continuing professional development. We have to log a certain number of hours for our institutes in order to keep our designations that we can use. And I wondered if you have a similar thing, if you do similar sorts of things as a coach, and it sounds as though you do.
Yeah, so I do. Coaching, as you probably know, isn't regulated at the moment in the UK, so there's no requirement as such. But I believe it's really important. It's really important to keep your professional development going. So I've got books next to me at the moment that I'm sort of on the go with. So at the moment, I'm halfway through this book, which is brilliant. It's Not You. It's
Okay.
about healing from narcissistic abuse by Dr. Romani Dervisala, or Dervisula, not quite sure how to say his
That
surname.
looks huge. That looks very hefty tome.
It's it's very easy to read, and it's really, really good. I'm also dipping in and out of Parenting Apart by Christina McGee at the moment, which is also really good. And I'm also, I have supervision for myself, and I'm also doing a course on providing therapeutic supervision for family lawyers at the moment. Nearly finished that in London, so I read books around that as well, around supervision and supervisory sort of skills for reflective practice, all of which are really helpful in my work as a coach through divorce as well. So yeah, I mean, it's one of my values anyway, is that constant learning, exploration, development. So I'm always reading something. Try not to do it last thing at night. Reading about divorce last thing at night is probably not a good idea.
Not a thing to go to bed with, that, is it?
No, I try and keep books about divorce out of my bedroom.
Yeah, I do generally, although I can't remember what it's called actually, and I can't see that far. There was a book that one of the Divorce Book Club did, which was a fictional book about divorce, and I did read that at bedtime.
Yeah.
And I was a bit like, oh, I don't really know why I'm doing this. This is not the plan.
It took me quite a long time doing this to really give myself permission to spend part of my working day reading, because I
Yeah,
love reading and I read a lot of novels as well. And so reading for me is like a real joy, and I really love it. And so I've had to shift my mindset on reading as part of my work. Yeah, and in my previous career, I didn't really have to do that in the same way. So now I spend an enjoyable hour a day or so reading, and it's part of my job, which is great.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it it takes a lot to keep up with everything there is going on in the divorce world, and those of us who work in any of the professions involved in it do spend a huge amount of time immersing. And this is a word that Phil O'Connor, who was my mentor when I first started doing this work, Phil O'Connor used to say, immerse yourself in the world of divorce. And sometimes even it's reading through case law on Twitter, and I'm not a lawyer, but sometimes the decisions that are made and the things that happen in the court are important for us to know about and understand. And even like going through Twitter and looking at what the family lawyers are posting about and what people are saying, it's all kind of that keeping up to date so that you can do the best possible job that you can for your clients, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And also so that you can, I mean, I see lots of changes happening at the moment in the divorce arena. There's lots of innovation happening. There's lots of really new, exciting collaborations happening. And without keeping on top of all of that and sort of being very aware of it, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that innovative drive to make divorce better for people, to, reduce the stigma of it, and to to help people realize that they can do this in a different way to how it might be represented or might have been represented in the past by the media and so on. And I want to be at the forefront of that. So doing things like this, talking to you, being on podcasts, networking with lawyers and other financial advisors and other people in the divorce professions, that's another really important part of my week as well. So I regularly have Zooms with lawyers and people like you. Then there'll be drinks evenings with law firms and and journalists, of course, as well. So that's another big part of my week often. Last week I spent I spoke to a journalist about an article that's hopefully going to come out in Prima magazine, I think in the summer. I spoke to her, put her in touch with a couple of my clients who were happy to speak to her, so, and all of those things, as you become more well known, what's really great is I was once chasing those journalists and now they're starting to come to me. And that's because I keep myself aware of stuff, and I comment on things and I talk to people, and that's as important a part of this job when you're self-employed, I think, as anything else.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with that. And I'm with you. Just starting to get journalists coming to me, which is a real privilege, because then you can talk about, because whilst when you're at the beginning of a divorce, you would go and see a divorce solicitor, a family solicitor. You don't necessarily go and see a divorce coach, even though that might be the best plan. You don't necessarily think that it's essential to have a financial planner involved in what you're about to do. Whereas if you've got anything that's vaguely complex, you absolutely do need these other areas of support. And I think the more we talk to journalists, the more we get our work out there and in the public eye and normalize it, the better. I think the better the divorce world will be, and I think it will make it easier for people to divorce, hopefully without the courts. So much because it takes so long to go through the courts. It's such a drawn out process.
Yeah, it's so drawn out and it's so stressful. And there are long periods of time when nothing seems to happen, but the anxiety levels are still very high. You're kind of waiting and you're in limbo, and so yeah, I'm absolutely the team approach, and that I think that's one of the biggest innovations I've seen in the last 7 years since I set up my business. The team approach where we're working together around cushioning around the client, so they've got the right legal support, the right emotional support, and the right financial support, and whatever other support they may need around that. Perhaps there's parenting support and mortgage advice. There are all sorts of things around the edges to make sure that people are getting the right advice from the right people, and that actually can be cost effective as well. So I think that's an education piece that I've been banging the drum about that for so long, but now there are lots of innovative things in the pipeline that are really bringing that into reality, which is just really, really exciting. It's really exciting to be at this point in time, I think. Talking to people about developing those new services that we can offer.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. In terms of when a client's working with you, how do you know when you've come to the end of your work together?
That's a really great question, isn't it? So there'll be it's an intuitive feeling thing, I think. Clients come to the point where you've talked about their values, you can see them starting to live them, they really begin to fly, spread their wings. The whole basis of my coaching, it's not a very good business plan or business model, is to make sure is to build my clients up so that actually they can take off and they don't need me anymore. They might want to sometimes pop in for a catch-up session, or some of them become friends, and we then go out for coffee and we meet up on the weekends and things sometimes. But the whole basis of my work is to enable people to not need me anymore. And so you get a feel, and the client knows as well, so then we'll have a conversation about where do we go from here, and sometimes they'll say, well, I'd like to check in a while, and that's fine, and they leave it very open. Never interested in doing a hard sell on anything at all. But it's a feeling thing. You can sort of feel that people are ready. I can't quite explain it, but it's a feeling.
That's a good explanation, because that sounds like it comes from both sides. It's a feeling from both of you, rather than you going, right, that's enough now. Off you go.
Yes, we finished now. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're kind of like left going, oh, I don't feel like I'm finished. I'm not ready yet. I still need my reins on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so sometimes we'll do a kind of tapered kind of ending. So it might be that maybe we don't have sessions anymore, but perhaps we have a call once a month for the next 3 months just to check in, make sure everything's okay. I create things for people sometimes. A different service, I'll create it and say, well, how about this? Should we try that? And that's another of the beauties of being self-employed. I think you can create something bespoke for a particular person
Yeah,
that they might need.
yeah. So it really is. It's what you need as somebody going through divorce and in that place. And I think that it's massively important, and it is hard to put your hands on, but having that emotional support, it almost, you're the kind of forward looking planning version of it. It's not therapy, it's not backward looking, it's not what's happened to you, it's where are you going next, and it's about kind of looking forward to this next chapter, even if you're not looking forward to it.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, sometimes we do look backwards, but we look backwards in order to move forwards. So, we might be looking back over the relationship that has finished and asking questions like, what patterns did I follow in that? What were the things that made me vulnerable to this? Or what mistakes do I feel I made along the way? What would I like to do differently next time? What have I overcome and how can I learn from it? So it's very much looking at what's happened in the past in order to think about how you want to be different potentially in the future. Is there a pattern you'd like to shift? Do you want to be like a totally different person in your next relationship? Now I've done that myself in my own life. Looked back over my 2 marriages and thought, well, how did I behave in that? Are there common patterns there that had similar outcomes that I didn't like and don't want to repeat? And how am I going to be different in any new relationship? And that's really lovely work to do with people. That's real growth work, and things that can shift lives.
That sounds incredibly difficult to do, as a like feeling as though I was the recipient of those questions, to kind of think about where I might have gone wrong. That feels like a really tough thing to do. Does it take time to draw those things out of people?
I think if you go in straight with those questions, then they sound really challenging. But very often, what I find is people are really aware of the patterns that they follow. So they'll say things like, this always happens to me, or I know that I'm doing this over and over again, or I know that I know that I tend to be a people pleaser, for example. And people know themselves, and I think that's one of the things that I come from in my coaching, is that my clients know themselves. They are the person who is the expert about themselves. They know their own selves, and their subconscious will throw things up when it's ready to deal with them. I believe that too. So if your subconscious is saying to you, I've done this loads of times in my previous relationships and the outcome has been this and I really don't like it, then you can start gently asking some of those questions. Can you describe that pattern to me? What does it look like? How would you like the outcome to be different? I wonder what small shifts you could make in order to change that. And then you chunk it down and then it becomes a bit more manageable. Not so scary.
Easy is, still sounds pretty scary to me. I mean, fair play to anyone who managed to do it, good on them. How easy is it to ask yourself those questions? Because you said these are things that you consider yourself, and I know from my work, a lot of the difficult but kind of moving forward financial questions I can't ask myself. I need to find another financial planner to come into my world and ask me those questions. So a lot of financial planners have their own financial planner, because despite the fact we know stuff, can't do the work for myself.
Yeah. And there is some of that. I mean, I do a lot of journaling. I do ask myself a lot of these questions, but I also work with coaches who are able to see things that are in my blind spot. Perhaps, we all have blind spots about ourselves, don't we? They will notice something. So after I left my second marriage, I saw a really brilliant coach for, I think I saw her for over sort of 4 or 5 months, to think about exactly what I've just described, how I want to be different next time, and how I'm, what I want my life to look like, and how I want my life to be really aligned. And so we did a lot of work around that. So I think you're right. Sometimes we need somebody from the outside to ask us those difficult questions in a very kind and loving and supportive way.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that first question might give you that answer, and then it's not until you get to the third or fourth or fifth or sixth that you're actually getting kind of deep into to the soul, I suppose, deep into the kind of into the real person.
I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a coach, and she was asking me, I can't remember exactly what the question was, but I kept saying, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know." And she said, "Claire, you do know, you really do know. You just need to listen to yourself and hear your intuition talking." And I think that's something that comes up a lot actually for my clients. There are often gut feelings, things we've stamped down, suppressed, and if we start listening to those gut feelings and those little kind of like moments, that's when we start really getting in touch with ourselves and who we are deep down.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be working with someone who lets you get away with I don't know.
No.
And it sounds
Absolutely.
it sounds mean, doesn't it? It sounds awful, but that's like you said, that's where you grow, that's how you change, that's how you stop following the patterns in the future.
Exactly. And there are nice ways to ask, to probe that I don't know answer. So I will say things like, if you did know, what might you know? That often releases a lot of things.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a question full of possibility. If you did know, what would it be?
Amazing. Amazing. That has been such an interesting conversation. I think the way, as this, I think the way you do is amazing. And I am delighted that so many more people are working with divorce coaches, and that there are so many more available, because it's so useful to people who are going through divorce, not to be leaning on their solicitors for the sorts of work that you're doing, because they're absolutely the wrong people. Solicitors are fabulous at telling you all about the law, but they're not trained to deal with people's emotions, and shouldn't have that on them. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I don't think so. I mean, the only other thing that I was thinking about this morning really was kind of outside of work, but outside of work, who am I? It was quite interesting. I was thinking about all the things I do outside of work, and I'm really active, and I love playing Scrabble, and I go do a lot of spinning, and I walk my friend's dog, and I think that kind of feeling of being proactive, being in control, having options and choices, I take into my outside of work life as well, in terms of, teaching my boys by example, showing them what it's like to take responsibility for your own stuff, all of those things. And I look around me, and since my second divorce, I've, redecorated pretty much my whole house, and just doing my bathroom at the moment. And life is always changing. That's one thing that I think is certain. Life is always changing. Life's always going to throw you curveballs, and it's about how you deal with them. That's what really makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's interesting how you say about, your week's not just your work. There's so much more going on, and I think the thing that probably we have in common is we live we live the work that we do because we've
Yeah.
been there. We might not have the identical same divorce as any of our clients, but we can empathise because we've lived it. We've been there. We're single parents. We've done that bit. And so we can empathise. We do get it, and we get how hard it is to juggle working full time and making tea and doing the washing and going to supermarket and still having a life yourself and still not being just the person who does the work in front of you. I think that's really important. It was something that I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and I can't remember who it was, about how you are not your job. Johnny Wilkinson does a podcast. Johnny Wilkinson, that former number 10 rugby player for England. I think it's called Who Am I? Anyway, this podcast well worth listening to. But he talks about, I've just described him to you as the number 10 for England. He's a former rugby player. He isn't that. He is lots and lots of other things.
We all play lots and lots of different roles. So I'm a coach. I'm also, for some lawyers, I'm a reflective practice partner. For my kids, I'm their mum. For my husband, I'm his fellow co-parent. For my friends, I'm a friend. For my parents, I'm a daughter. For my brother, I'm a sister. We have all those different roles, and they're all merged. And I think where I'm at right now in my life, I feel like there are core things in me that I bring to all of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today, Claire. I really enjoyed that conversation. Anybody wants to get hold of Claire, work with her, read her book, we will put all Claire's contact details in the show notes so that you can get hold of her. Thank you very much.
Tamsin, take care.